core piece of a batting order. And this year, it's just been nowhere close to resembling that. And, we started the show a couple hours ago talking about that with the Jays. Look at Vladdy's weekend again. He had a few hits, 3 singles. Not like he's striking out a ton. He had a couple of walks, but no extra bases. Like, he's not slugging enough. Whit Merrifield is hitting very well for average, and he's been very good this year for them. But he was hitting second all weekend. He's not a guy that hits for power. He's and there are certain guys on this team that they were expecting big things out of, and it just hasn't happened. And Kirk is right at the front of that line.
That Merrifield, sometimes I'm just like, it's kind of like Kevin Biggio in some aspects, where you're like, what are you? Like, what are you? Like, well, are you just like a utility dude, or what's up with it?
I think on a team that was deeper, that was getting more out of different players, that's exactly what Merrifield is supposed to be. He's a guy that's going to
utility guy,
role player.
Exactly,
yeah,
he's a role player, 7th, 8th, 9th guy. In the batting order, he's a guy that will move around the diamond, which he's been doing, and he's a guy that plays with very quality and solid fundamentals, which is very important for depth players, like a professional batter. He's a guy who runs out of the box quick. He defends well. Like, these are all things you need. But when Whit Merrifield is hitting second in the order, it says something about what they're trying to find. And meanwhile, yesterday, that wasn't really the issue. It was that Texas, it was batting practice for the Rangers. Like,
whatever.
They put up 11 runs on, what was it, 17 hits or something last night?
Bassett was good early on, and then when Kirk got hurt, I remember making a note, because we had Griff on the other day, and Griff was talking about how Bassett and Kirk work well together, and then Jansen comes in, and it kind of fell apart. And Griff had tweeted out like a week ago saying, small sample size, have Kirk behind the plate for Bassett's next start, because you take a look at it, and then the minute that Kirk leaves, Jansen comes in, and it all goes south. And kind of, I was thinking to myself, like, was Griff right on that? And he kind of like retweeted it and said, like,
shouldn't be that big of a factor.
I understand it, but it just, he might have noticed something. Maybe there's a comfort level between catcher and pitcher, or whatever it is.
That happens a lot.
It went south, and like 6 Cobb, that game was over.
Much.
I thought it was
that's
over.
outrageous. Like, that is a legit puking away a game.
Yeah.
I understand Texas has got the hottest offense in baseball. Look at what Seager did again yesterday. He's had a phenomenal season. Phenomenal. Simeon's been great this year. They got a lot of quality bats, and they put up massive production all year. But if you're a legit baseball team, and you get spotted 6, you close that every single day of the week. And it didn't happen. And, again, that's not the AL East, but you look at the series before in Baltimore, they dropped 2 or 3 against the Orioles, and they're 7-17 versus the AL East. It's killing them. Like, it's killing them. There are certain players that are killing them, and there is a certain split stat, and that happens to be within the division, that is really causing the problems. Yet, glass half full, they're just outside the wild card right now. And here's Scott Mitchell, our TSN Blue Jay reporter. So are you glass half full guy, Scotty, like I said at the end, where they're within striking distance of a wild card spot, and there's still a lot of ball games left to be played? Or are you a glass half empty guy where they don't appear to be much more than just a mediocre team right now?
Yeah, I'm half full. I'm half full. I'm half empty. It depends on the day, and I think that know how.
Can't confirm or deny.
Yeah, I'm gonna toe the line on this one, but this is how you feel if you're a Blue Jays fan. I mean, there's been a few weeks of this season, and there's games where they put it all together, and you say, yeah, this is a 90+ win team. This is a playoff caliber team, and that's what the projection set this team was, and they're right where they should be. And right now they're playing, I think, at about an 86 win pace, so that's a little bit off the projections. And I think when you kind of look at it, there's 2 easy things to look at. It's Alek Manoah turning into a minor league pitcher, and it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. looking like kind of just a good hitter at times, and for the most of the past 2 months. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You talked about it in the lead-in. They haven't been very good against good teams, and I think the thing is, when you watch this team statistically, they were top 5 in on base percentage over the last month, and they can't score runs. So when you watch this team, It's the little things. It's, a missed cutoff man. It's a base running blunder. It's an inability to get a, big hit in with runners in scoring position. Because statistically, you look at the team and they're just about top 12 in baseball in every spot. And, it's a good team, but you just wonder, when push comes to shove against these better teams, and we've seen it these last couple of years, they just really seem to haven't taken that next step yet.
Scotty, one of the factor you just talked about, like hitting a cutoff man being a deciding factor, all their other statistical categories solid, but you've been around baseball a long time and sports for all of us. Like, big dogs make things happen. And if Vladdy's out of his mind hot right now, a lot of these things probably aren't talked about. What's up with him?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, Vladdy, it starts with him. I mean, Bo has had an amazingly consistent season. He hasn't had any dips whatsoever. And, you look at, the two guys that are really supposed to add, that type of support. It's Vladdy and Chapman. And, Matt Chapman has just been horrific for about 6 weeks now after that hot start. And, when you look at Vlad, he looks extremely uncomfortable. And, I reported last month he had an MRI quietly on that, left wrist injury. I think he's, kind of grinding through some things a little bit more than, anybody's going to let on, and obviously not bad enough to take him out of the lineup. And he's not a guy that's definitely going to ask out. But, when you look at some of his at-bats and specifically the lack of power, and, he hasn't been pulling balls, he hasn't been getting balls in the air, and that's been a theme with him. But this is just really extreme. And this looks like, to me, more of a guy that's lost at the plate, and, a guy that's battling some physical things as well. Because it's not just a slump. And, you wonder if this is going to be, something that nags at him all season long, or if he can kind of get over this over the next few weeks and, has a hot second half. And, you talk about glass half full and half empty. That's where you got to feel good about this team. If you are a glass half full fan, you look at George Springer, you look at Vladdy, you look at Chapman, you look at a few other guys in this lineup, Alejandro Kirk, who's on the IL now. There's a lot of, catching up to do in terms of stats in the second half. And, if you're glass half full, you say there's a lot of guys due to get hot, and this team could go on a run in the second half. And you look at the last 2 years, they've been a second half team. It's been July, August, September for this team the last 2 years. And, it looks kind of similar to where they're sitting right now and how they're playing as well.
Scotty, we were talking about Alejandro Kirk and, his injury, but also his inconsistency this season. Is there something that you've noticed that is missing in his game, or is it kind of just a reset from such a great season last year?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you have to go back to spring training and the fact that he got such a late start. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think, when you look at Alejandro Kirk these days, I think, conditioning is going to be a thing. And when you get into these dog days of summer, you're 2.5 months into the season, you didn't get, your regular spring training ramp up. I just don't think this guy's found his timing or his groove. And, physically he looks a little bit worn out. That's obviously not a good sign when you've got 3.5 months to go. So, maybe this IL stint is, the best thing that could happen for him, get some rest. But, he just looks tired. He hasn't been able to get the ball in the air, kind of like Vladdy. And, the bat hasn't been, doing the heavy lifting like it was last year at this time. He got an all-star berth based off of, his mid-May to end of June, and we haven't seen that yet. And that's the thing with this lineup is, it's been Bo carrying it and, Chapman for the first month. And, for the last probably 5-6 weeks, everyone has kind of been taking turns scuffling. And, that's why you've seen this club try to, really kind of grind out some games, and way too many games for the amount of talent in this lineup that they're scoring 3 runs or less.
With Scott Mitchell, and you look at the lineup, like Schneider's moving pieces around. He had Merrifield hitting second all weekend. Now he's got Varsho hitting second tonight. He's got the kid DHing, hitting fifth tonight. Like, how much of this is Schneider just throwing everything at the wall and hoping something will stick?
Yeah, just hoping to catch lightning in a bottle and, hoping something works and, kind of hit it on the head. It's, Vladdy, everything kind of revolves around him. And when you don't have him, kind of as that linchpin in the lineup, you're kind of moving pieces around, just looking to find something, anything. And, that's why Spencer Horwitz, you mentioned the kid, that's why, he's up. He's a guy that's been getting on base in AAA, doesn't have a whole lot of power in that left-handed bat, but he's a guy who can get on base, and he's a contact bat that, can hopefully, just spark something at this point. And, that's where the Blue Jays are at. They don't have, a whole lot of prospects, in the upper minors that you can dip down and, maybe change up, just the recipe a little bit. This is a veteran club, and it's been interesting just to watch these first 3 months because they definitely leave you wanting more. But then when you look at the big picture and look at the overall, standing, they're probably in a spot that they're, pretty comfortable with heading into the second half of the season.
Scotty, Schneider was taking some heat on Twitter yesterday. I was just following along, and it was actually quite a bit of heat. Him and Paul Azinger were just getting torched on Twitter.
Shredded.
Fans love to go at a skip, a coach, a manager. I mean, is it deserved?
Look, I've yet to see anyone, praise a manager move on Twitter. So, it brings out the hindsight in terms of the bullpen moves. And look, we've talked about this a lot with Charlie Montoyo. A lot of these, bullpen moves, the analytics, the matchups, these are all scripted / talked about / pre-planned, well in advance, not of just a game, but of a series. So, and then there's the aspect of, sometimes, you just got to throw out there what you got. And I think that's the case where a lot of people, you want to look at Adam Cimber, why is he in a ball game? You got 8 bullpen arms. You're throwing it together a bullpen day right now, which, puts you behind the 8 ball already. And, it's going to be interesting because that's one of the areas you look at this team that you thought was going to be pretty solid. And, the bullpen hasn't lost them a lot of games, but when you look at the depth there right now, that's probably, the whole pitching staff overall when you lead into the trade deadline, definitely need some reinforcements there. And I think maybe the rose or the bloom has fallen off Cimber's rose, throwing 85, 86 this year because, he's a valuable guy, but, it's been ugly this year.
Yeah, Cimber is officially in whipping boy mode. I mean, you talk about Twitter, and it's not going to help. Trent Thornton's coming up now. Like, Cimber's the new Thornton, but Thornton's back. He's been recalled.
When you're at work and you see Puffy, ask him about Cimber, what his thoughts are.
Honestly, if he got hit the exact same, but he had a different windup, people would be like, I like that guy. He's a little bit unlucky.
No, but the goofy jumping up and down, and then his knuckles touch the dirt, and then it's like, what are you doing?
It looks goofy, and then when it gets hit, you're like, of course it got hit. Of course it got hit. And that's the nature of the beast. But listen, I don't love seeing Cimber on the mound either. But when you hand a 6-0 lead with Bassett on the mound, I'm not looking at the manager, Scott. And I'm not suggesting you were necessarily. If a serious club closes that game yesterday, and like John Schneider didn't blow a 6-0 lead, the Blue Jays did, and it was awful yesterday. They puked the game away, and by the end of it, you knew it was over. And sure, he could have made a different decision here or there, but I'm sorry, a manager is not the reason that they blew a 6-0 lead.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess I didn't really answer O's question. I mean, yeah, you don't put any of this on Schneider. I mean, the guy's got a 4-year contract. He's got what he's got. And, this team just can't get a hit in a key situation. And those, right. Those things tend to even out. And just go through this lineup. And that's where you get glass half full, glass half empty. You can go through this lineup and go down from 1 through 9 and go through the rotation and the bullpen. How many guys on this team are, meeting expectations or exceeding them? It's not a lot. It's Bo, it's, Jordan Romano, it's, Eric Swanson, it's Jose Barrios, a lot of the pitching staff. When you go through the lineup 1 to 9, Varsho, no, Kirk, no, Vladdy, no. So if you're glass half full, you say, hey, that's going to turn in the second half. And, if you're glass half empty, you say, hey, just, not their year. They're having down season.
Scotty, have you been gearing down on the rollerblades downtown?
No. There's no rollerblading going on anymore.
Why? But I thought you and Jay Onright took the tarps off and went rollerblading. You told me that. Yeah, no,
that's a pre-ACL thing. Still getting there. We've still got to, we still got a few more steps to go before I can, yank the shirt off and get the translucent body with a little bit of sun here.
Yeah, believe me, as someone who's been through a massive knee injury and surgery and rehab, you'll never be the same, Scotty. I hate to be the guy who tells you that, but everything you do, you will now fear you're going to blow your knee out.
You guys talk about professional athletes, like record-breaking times returning to injury, and now you're conceding to the fact that you just never be the same.
Yeah. Well, listen, I can give you an example. Like I was standing at this place where there were tennis courts. Tennis. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to play tennis. What if I
Scotty, by the way, he blew his knee out getting off the couch.
Like literally off the couch.
Actually, getting up off the floor, if you want to be. Like, facts matter, all right? This is not.
Well, I crashed a scooter in L.A., so I don't know if I'm.
Scotty!
That's a way cooler story than mine. I was falling asleep on the floor, and I got up and blew my knee out. Pathetic.
Yeah, I always want to tell that.
Just a couple studs talking here.
Yeah, that's right, man. I got you, Scotty. Don't you worry, man. All right, buddy. Enjoy the series in Miami.
You know what? We'll go. I think pickleball is the old man ACL injury.
Yeah.
So we'll get into some of that one.
I'm in, man. You let me know. We'll pickleball all night. You don't have to move. You just sit there and hit. It's like target practice. It's awesome.
Save some for us, Scotty. See ya, pal.
Sounds beautiful. Cheers, fellas.
See ya, buddy. Scott Mitchell. That's true, though, man. I'm so terrified of tearing my meniscus again and having to go through the rehab and.
Hey, it's an excuse anyway, Hayes. Like it's like me playing soccer. It's just like, now my ankle's jammed up.
It's pathetic. Like, honestly, playing like basketball or something, I don't want to do it. I'm worried I'm going to blow my knee out again.
Well, you got to be careful. Like, you're 40 now, so his body's not going to bounce back as quickly.
No, and I want to honestly, I just want to be able to golf. Like the idea of blowing my knee out playing a pickup basketball game and then missing a golf season would be so infuriating. So I just want to take it easy, do what I got to do, and fire it up from there. All right? So we'll get to our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Back into our conversation with Darren Dreger about what the Leafs could end up doing here, over the next couple of weeks, and a report about how some teams in the NBA feel about working with Masai Ujiri. I'll tell you why I like the report, if it's true from Masai and the Raptors' perspective. That more still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Thank you to Callum Bine. Justin Thomas, 9 matches, 6 wins, 2 losses. 1/2 for 6.5 points. I did not see this part. More points than Hayes had in Barrie.
That's sure.
That's a pot shot. I did not see that. I didn't see that, and I shouldn't have said it.
Who was that, Callum? Let's see your stats.
Dude, you can't use that line when you have 2 career points or whatever.
I made it. I was there. I played, dressed. This guy probably played House League all the way up. So I'm not going to take trips from.
I hope this
like
guy
that.
scored 50 in the OHL.
I guarantee you he didn't.
Please respond, Callum.
Justin Thomas, when he was at his height, obviously did that, but he's playing horribly right now.
Dude,
that's the whole point.
I cannot
look at
argue.
Tiger Woods' record. Should Tiger be there just because he's Tiger? No,
he was. He was terrible in the Ryder Cup.
That was exactly. But
they
he was
couldn't
still
find
Tiger.
a guy to play with him. They had to put him with guys like Steve Pate and other guys.
But he was
Steve
Tiger
Stricker.
Woods. Like obviously he was going to play. Justin Thomas is not the equivalent.
There was nothing more infuriating than that. Than that Ryder Cup team with Woods and Stricker and Mickelson. They wheel in and they thought they were so cool, and they got smoked so many times. Oh, my God.
Well, I guess the Americans don't really need Justin Thomas. They might put him in there for ceremonial purposes. He's Mr. America, blah, blah, blah.
Him and Spieth lead the charge.
Right.
Go watch the last Ryder Cup again.
Yeah,
those
they were
two
okay.
led the charge every day.
No, you're thinking of the President's Cup, and that was a bloodbath.
No, I'm not.
They were
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Go back to Wisconsin. Everyone, day.
You know who was the best there? Was Dustin Johnson. He was 5-0.
He was. He was after them, though.
Who are you taking? DJ or JT? Who would you put on the team?
Right now?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm taking DJ.
Of course
but
you are.
That's not saying JT's not on my squad.
Well, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If Zach Johnson, who's the Ryder Cup captain, got a phone call today and said, you've got to pick between one of these two players to go to Italy for the Ryder Cup. It's JT or Wyndham Clark. You can only take one. What do you think Zach Johnson would say?
He would take Justin Thomas.
Yeah.
Bang on.
Yes, he would. Doesn't mean he's making the right choice.
Closed.
But he would, because it's an old boys club and JT's been around a long time.
No, it's not an old boys club.
Sure
it's just about it's about a guy that knows it's the Ryder Cup and the competitive nature, and him and his boys.
US Open's just a chip and putt. Like, the U.S. Open seems like a pretty competitive tournament.
Dude, I'm only talking about the point you made where you said JT's not going to make the Ryder Cup.
I'm saying I don't know if I said he wouldn't. Maybe I did. I said I don't know if he should, the way he's playing.
No, you said this is my hot take. JT will not be on the Ryder Cup.
And you said you'd take Wyndham Clark, too.
I would take Wyndham Clark. I would. Zach Johnson would.
Yeah, and then you chirped his name.
Wyndham?
Yeah.
Well, no, I was indicating that it sounds like kind of a...
It's a country club name,
It's a country
for
club
sure.
name, right?
Dude, it's a Raleigh name. There's all kinds of names like
There's a lot of Wyndhams down there?
Oh,
Thurston.
Wyndham,
Thurston.
Thurston.
Is there a
good
Thurston?
handle.
Like Farclay, and it's just it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a whole different vibe down there.
I love it.
Yeah, it is. All right, couple things we want to revisit here. One, there's a report out there. I can't recall who reported this. I saw it multiple times over the weekend that some teams are growing frustrated with, working with the Raptors, which would indicate the Raptors don't want to just give away players or just capitulate to whatever the asking price is.
Did you say teams or players?
Teams, like executives around the league are kind of getting pissed off with Masai Company because they feel like they're driving too hard of a bargain. And I think that's a good sign. I think that's a compliment to Masai. I do think what Masai is possibly dealing with is when he first got here, he was fleecing a lot of teams on trades. And that Kawhi trade in particular might be the most famous trade in NBA history in terms of it being immediately successful and completely one-sided. With all the respect to DeMar and Pirtle and others, like Kawhi shows up and they win a championship for a Canadian team.
By the way, do you not ever wonder, was there not other offers on the table for, no disrespect to DeMar, but there had to have been a bunch of other teams in play for that. No?
Right, but there was so much uncertainty, right, about Kawhi's health. Everyone knew he only had 1 year until free agency. I think the whole league thought he was going to L.A. So I'll bet you the Clippers were probably in on him, but thinking we'll lowball you, or we'll just get him next year, which they ended up doing. So Masai had a reputation, and a deserved one, of being a guy that is not someone to be trifled with, right? Like, if you're going to get into negotiations with him, you better watch yourself. And as a result, I think the rest of the league is kind of cautious. And, Masai also really values his players, possibly overvalues them, for sure. Maybe significantly overvalues them. But I don't have an issue with him being a tough guy to negotiate with. That's what you want.
Yeah, he'd rather that than being
a
getting
pushover
rinsed.
buffoon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I when I saw that, I'm like, okay, yeah, Masai's in the trenches, man. You want to come play? Let's play. It's a chess game. It's not going to be easy.
There's got to be a record now, especially with the internet and the way people go back and look at stuff, where there are managers in every sport that have a reputation of getting rinsed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It just and believe me, there's wins and losses in everything. And I every manager I talk to, they don't want to win a trade. They just don't want to lose it. Like, I think sometimes when a trade works for both teams, that's a successful trade because, you've got somebody that is a willing partner. If you rinse the guy's probably not going to deal with you in the future, or you're not going to get him again, type of thing. So I think it's all about the respect factor for both sides. But there's got to be, I don't know, Mike Milbury always comes to mind, like somebody like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's GMs in every sport that probably didn't last long, where you could put a list together where this guy just got absolutely taken to the cleaners like 2, 3, 4 times. And finally ownership said, this is embarrassing. Like, you have to go. I've always heard that logic too, that you want both sides to win. I don't understand that, and I don't.
Somebody's going to win it. Someone's going to go to another team that plays better than the guy going back. It's automatic.
Isn't it a competition? Like, how can you ask your players to try to kill the other team, but the GM has to be you guys are all equals, like that always has rubbed me the wrong way. This idea that
like here's a situation
both
of a
sides
trade.
need to be happy. No, go out there and be ruthless and try to crush them on a trade if you can.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Here's a trade where two things were true. Okay? Oza Lynch went from San Jose to Colorado for Owen Nolan. And both players played very well. But
Sure.
San Jose got a cup out of it. So you got to think, or no, Colorado got a cup out of it. So you got to think that Colorado won the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, sure, those are 1-for-1. They probably are going to work for both teams. Like if you're trading a very good player for another very good player, then yeah, understandably that's going to happen. But if you're talking some kind of out of left field type of move where you see a player that you believe is better than their organization thinks that they are, you're not going to pay them at the price you evaluate them at. You're going to pay them at a price that they evaluate them at. In other words, if you think they're only worth a 7-rounder, I'm not going to give you a 3rd-rounder to make you feel better because I think that guy I'm about to acquire is going to be a stud for me. So it lacks consistency with the way it actually plays out. And why wouldn't you be in it to win it? If the other team does well, fine. But the idea that you'd prefer that, I've never quite understood that in competition. So, yeah, that's the report out there. We were talking with Dregs in the last hour about, him reporting that Brad Treliving and Sheldon Keefe have met, I'm sure, multiple times, and they're kind of on the same page. And it sounds as if Keefe is going to return and possibly return with a contract extension. And I've been thinking about this since I heard that report, and Dregs has been reporting on that for a number of days now, that if Keefe returns, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, those are the 5 longest-standing players, the core pieces, the building block pieces of this team,
Yes.
and the head coach. If that happens, I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of buzz and excitement with everything else. Like I think a lot of fans, and maybe I'm speaking more of fair weather fans or kind of come and go fans.
Why are you interested? Like, this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, what kind of buzz, if they show up on the ice and they completely look different, which is a whole nother story because it doesn't matter until April, until the playoffs start yet again. But if they're playing a completely kind of different looking style and they're more aggressive and these guys are a part of that, would that not be good enough for you? Or like, what kind of buzz or excitement are you? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess my answer is I don't think it will. I think a lot of fans look at this and say those players and the coach and Shanahan, they represent basically everything. Like 95% of when you talk about the Leafs, that's what you talk about. And right. The idea that they're all going to return means, yes, there was change, but it's peripheral change. And the change, literally, the change has happened many, many times over in every other position. There have been multiple, wingers. There have been multiple depth players, third liners, fourth liners, depth defensemen. Goaltenders have come and gone. How many different goalies have there been over the years? So we've seen it before. The mainstays are the 5 players I'm talking about, and I guess Keefe over the last 4 seasons. And I think I think they take up 95% of the oxygen. And I think people, after 7 years of them not getting it done in the playoffs, albeit this year was different. They did win a round. The focus was not, hey, well, I wonder what they'll do with Kerfoot. Hey, Liljegren, where's – like the day after, no one was talking about that. They were talking about the main guys and the coach and Shanahan. And if they're all back, then it just, to me, will signal a consistency in terms of pathway and in terms of messaging, regardless of how – hard and how much time Treliving and company will try to spin it differently.
That's what people are going to be asking, Brian. They're going to say, if it's all back, what do you honestly think is going to change come April?
Right.
Is it like year 7 of these guys all being together that it's going to click in and all of a sudden go on a tear, that's what people are going to be saying. Why are you expecting something different?
Exactly. And that's what we were saying after the playoffs ended. And we were saying after the playoffs ended a year ago. Of course, that's what they've been saying for the last 4 years. And that's the only question to be asked. Why do you think something different will happen this year? And
same as last year, same as the year before, and the year before. And that's the only question.
Don't think they have an answer. I don't. I think Shanahan's answer would likely be, we're going to punch a ticket, which they likely will, and hope it breaks their way again, which is what they've been doing for 7 years. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe that's all you can. I don't know. Maybe that's all you can ask for. The way that the parity in the league.
I think that's the plan. Like I said it the second they lost. I came on here. I said Shanahan has to make a decision because it is very tantalizing. It's very seductive to sell jerseys, sell tickets, and go to the playoffs every year. That's an accomplishment. Like it is. It's not the ultimate goal. And it's become somewhat, bland here because we've become used to it, which go talk to fans of this team prior to 7 years ago. They'll tell you how difficult it was for a long time for them to accomplish that. But, you're going to sell jerseys, you're going to sell tickets, you're going to go to the playoffs. That move is understandable, but it's also safe. And, I think that's what he's probably going to do. Because you cannot, I guess what I'm getting to is there's no way, I'll use myself as an example. I can't speak for anyone else. Regardless of how much else changes, if all those players are back and the coach is back, you can't convince me there's so much different. You can't. They're still the same team with just different pieces. Look at what they did at the trade deadline. They brought in 6 different players. There's been turnover everywhere else but those main pieces and the coach. And if they're all going to come back, I just feel like it's going to be like, all right, wake me up on day 1 of the regular season. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and you talk about just punching your ticket, and that is the goal. You want to keep going back at it, and hopefully one time it breaks through. But you just look at, like, last season, you get the Tampa Bay Lightning out in the first round, and the monsters of the Bruins with the best regular season of all time are punted by the Florida Panthers, and then you're getting Carolina jersey on the other side. It's like, that's crazy to think of that path to maybe get to a final.
Yeah. Doesn't it just make you think, though, that those big guys can't get it done? Like, isn't that what is in the back of people's minds? It's like, okay,
well,
can
Noodles,
they get
how
it
could
done?
you think anything else? They haven't done it. They haven't done it in 5 straight
whole
years.
Point. So you change everything else, Noodles, and I think people's minds are made up. Okay, people's minds will have to change if something big changes. But if something big doesn't change, then minds have been made up, and that's that. And that doesn't mean it's going to determine what happens during the regular season of the playoffs. And I'm not suggesting the Leafs have to consider what Joe Fan on Twitter is thinking or saying or reacting to, but it is a business. And, I just feel like it's kind of become – it's going to be difficult to sell that this will be different if you're bringing back the main pieces.
Well, here's what I'll be the contrarian to that, because I agree with you. But I'll be the contrarian and say Nathan MacKinnon said, 9 years have been doing this, right? And then you had Alex Ovechkin 13 years. So that's what people are going to say. It takes time to break through. Is that not the case?
Sure, and I think that's what they're going to sell.
And it's maybe
I think
valid.
That's what they're going to sell. Yeah, sure. And listen, it very well could. It very well could. And I understand why Shanahan would look at it that way. Is, this team 100-plus points every year, make the playoffs, and then see what happens. I get that logic, but, it's been 7 years, and if you're going to come back with the 5 players I'm talking about and the coach, everything else is window dressing in terms of the big picture, how you feel about the team.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. I think that's how fans are going to react. And that doesn't mean it's not important pieces, right? And you still got to make sure you plug the right holes, and it's a big job, and Trey Living's got to get things done. But if the 5 guys are there and the coach is there day 1, it's going to look and sound the same.
I would agree with that. The only thing I can think that would be different than that, Hayes, and I was talking with my buddy during golf about this, if they found some way to have major upgrades on D, like a wipeout of that D core and some kind of elite goaltender. And then I would be
How
like,
are you going to do that with the
dude,
same
I don't
guys?
know. I
Exactly,
don't
it's
know.
not
I
possible.
don't know if that's even possible.
Not possible.
But that would be one avenue where I'd be like, that's different, and maybe this is something different where it's like, go ahead.
I totally
with
agree with you. But
Yeah.
that's going to mean Mitch Marner gets traded and possibly William Nylander gets traded. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
So,
you sure as hell aren't trading them both. I'll tell you that right now. Let
I-
alone one of them.
I don't think any of them are going, but that's my point. So, major change in net or big turnover where you feel great about a top four on the back end can't happen if the five guys we're talking about are returning, because they're also the five highest paid players, right? So you got massive amounts of financial resources put into those players, and also your biggest trade collateral would feature those guys, to make major moves. You can't. You're not going to bring back the four forwards and Riley and add two good defensemen and Hellebuck. Like, it can't happen. So that's what I'm saying. And I think you just answered my question in terms of how people are going to react, because that doesn't mean, again, they're not going to plug in players or get good players, or maybe you make other trades that on the surface don't seem like they're going to have an impact, but they actually will. All of that is accessible, and we'll talk about it. And I think diehards will still be very intrigued by it and the numbers behind it, and try to mock different lines together and deep pairings together. But I think the average fan will say, oh, it's the same guys, same team.
And a bigger question, Hayes, is you saw how deep Vegas was. When you got three forwards making over $11 million, is it even possible to be deep enough to have a team that can go on a run?
Well,
because it's a massive. It's the biggest question.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
And
every board every board that goes up, highest paid. There's three of them always, and it's like, everyone talked about, can you win with a $10 million player? And it finally happened this year with Eichel. And Vegas has a bunch of high-paid guys. But $11 million is a different number. And when you got three of them on the same forward group, it's tight to have depth, man.
Yeah, it is. And that answer may have been in front of us the whole time. Like, maybe it is just simply that, right? Is it just it can't work because the finances won't work. And you're asking too much.
Right. Instead of having a $3 million fourth-line winger, you're going off a scrap heap for depth, and generally scrap heap depth is not taking you on anywhere. So
no.
Who knows?
Exactly. Right. And the same thing on the back end. Instead of that second pairing guy being, you got two guys at $5 million or something, you got to find a couple guys at 2, 2.5, 3. You need a kid to step in and make a bigger impact on a cheaper deal.
Big difference, man. Makes
a big difference. Right. Absolutely. Come back with our best bets, brought to you by FanDuel. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Bet on all your favorite teams on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. We're live with the Jays game. It's up now. I like the Barrios over 4.5 strikeouts. He's been outstanding in June.
Yeah,
He's been great through June. He's really been great throughout the season, outside of a couple of hiccups early in the year. But I also like Houston tonight on the money line. You got Scherzer on the mound for the Mets, but the Mets have been brutal. And Houston's at home. You don't have to pay a lot of juice. I like Houston tonight. And I like the under in the Diamondbacks-Brewers game. You got Corbin Burns on the mound up against Kelly with the D-backs. I think it'll be a pitching duel tonight. Total's low. It's 8, but I like the under in that one. Today's best bets are brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more and get your winnings fast when you download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. All right. Well, it's been good to be back. A little bit rusty, admittedly. A little bit rusty today.
No, you were.
I got a
fire.
message. I got a message late from the Montreal golf course. The guys, AJ, the head pro, is like, sorry, man, I never checked this app. Hazy B anytime. Unfortunately, it was late.
Yeah, too little, too late. That's a shame. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah, but I've got rumblings from all around the province of somebody saw you in the States, and I don't know where the hell you were, but there was.
Really?
Were you in the States?
I was, but I was in literally the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, like Vermont.
No one. Yeah, I was in. There's this cool place in Vermont that it's got like a private golf course on it, and the course, it's not like a legit great course, but there's really cool tee boxes. You got a few greens, and there were 13 or 14 of us. So seeing buddies I haven't seen in a long time, and all of us have been friends for like 20, 30 years.
Nice.
So Yeah, you take advantage because guys are coming from all over the place. We had my buddy Foxy flying from London, England. My buddy Kieran is from New York.
Wow, that's a heavy hitter. Whoa, heavy hitter.
Yeah, heavy hitter.
I took my brother to Vermont on a ski trip, my late brother, and I paid for everything for him to go skiing. Bought him a helmet, like big goggles, snowsuit. It was so cold there. He went down the hill once, threw his skis and poles, like just against some rack, and I never saw him the rest of the weekend.
Right. Wow. That's enough. Yeah, it gets cold up there, man.
I mean, it was a cold. I've been to Edmonton in the middle. This was a chill. It was insane.
Yeah. It's tough to grind through that. My wife and I, we went to St. Anne's in Quebec City. That would have been 12, 13 years ago. It was so cold.
You can't function, man.
You can't. Like we'd go up for a couple hours and back to the hotel. We tried to do a night ski. Do you know how cold it was at night without the sun out there?
Oh,
like it was one of those with the wind chill. It felt like minus 42 or something. We're like, this is insane. Jeez. We've flown here. We'd like to ski, but I can't do it. Like there's no way.
Yeah,
it's pointless. But Vermont's a cool spot. And anyway, back and we'll see what happens. Right? We got a lot of action. We got the NBA draft coming up this Thursday. We got the NHL draft in just over a week, and free agency right around the corner. Jays are playing. We're only got one major left, right?
I'm predicting one thing. Like I think something's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be later this week, but I think we're going to be rocking here with the hockey news. I'm telling you. I'm predicting it, Hazy. I'm predicting
I know it.
You're talking a big trade or something
big
like that?
Trade, big something's going down here this week. I'm telling you. All right? I'm calling it. I'm calling my shot right now.
Thinking. I like the way you're thinking. I'm kind of thinking the same thing in the NBA. Like the Bradley Beal deal was a massive trade. That's a massive move. But that's the first of many. So there'll be a lot of different things cooking in the NBA and in the NHL and, of course, throughout Major League Baseball. And we're going to be all over it. So it's great to be back. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for all the help. We always appreciate that. Everyone for tuning in, TV, radio, podcast, or web. We appreciate you doing that. And it's good to be back. So
good stuff.
I guess I got to pull a tap man here. It's time.
Gotta fly.
Gotta get out of here. I'm looking at the clock right now. We gotta go. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.